When you're producing yourself in a home studio, how do you know when it's finished? How do you know your record's done? Like, where do you stop?
Yeah, that's a great question. There's actually kind of a joke about that all producers tell, which is basically you never finish a record, you just stop working on it. There's always more you can do, and there's always, and that is especially hard when you're self-producing. I'm self-producing a project right now of a symphonic work that I wrote called the Stylus Symphony, and I realized that I need a producer. It would actually be so much better if I had somebody to just say, you know what, you're done. I was talking to Don Was about this, and actually there's an interview with Don Was in the course Music Production Analysis where he talks about this very thing. He has a band called Was Not Was. They spent like the last 15 years on their last record, and he fully admits, man, I needed a producer to tell me I was done. It's a really good idea, I think, if you're producing yourself, to give yourself a deadline. You can move it if you absolutely have to, but what I say is, you know what, book the CD release concert, book the club, put it on the calendar, put it far enough out there that you have plenty of time to get it done. Maybe it's 3 months from now, maybe it's 6 months from now, but book it because it's so easy to never get done. And it's important, frankly, to finish. It really is important to finish. And if you're producing yourself and there's not a label breathing down your neck saying, we need it, it's got to be out, you're a week away, you got to, get it out there because we've got the marketing machinery all cranked up. Not having that is a blessing, but it can be a double-edged sword, because that way you can always kind of say, you know what, I'm going to work a little bit more on this. Now, the flip side, obviously, is you don't want to put something out that you don't feel good about, that you feel like is not done. And that's where, bringing in other people and playing it for them. And I recommend playing it not just for your family and friends. In fact, playing it for your family and friends almost doesn't count. You need people in your life who you can play stuff for, and they're going to say, man, that sounds great. You're a genius. That's so good. You need those people. But, just between you and me, their opinion means nothing. They're going to say that anyway because they love you. And that's great, and it's wonderful to have people like that in your life. I highly recommend finding people who you don't know, or who you don't know very well, and they don't know that this is your work. And actually having, again, the testicular fortitude to actually put some headphones on those people and say, hey, I just want you to listen to this. Tell me what you think. And if they say, is this your stuff? Just don't even tell them. I'm just curious. I'm just curious what you think of this. And be very neutral about it. And then watch their kinesthetic responses. Watch if it's a beat-oriented thing, if they're not moving to the beat, if they are not involuntarily actually, getting in the groove, you probably still have some work to do. If they come at you like, I have no idea I can't hear the vocals, that's a really good thing to know, that maybe the vocal is not loud enough. Very common mistake among people who produce themselves. It's, it takes a while just to get past hearing yourself on tape. If you remember the first time you ever heard yourself, coming back off of a device, I say tape, but these days, of course, there's no tape. It's very hard to judge those things for yourself. So getting some unbiased feedback is good. It can be dangerous too, because if you're very fragile, or and that's why it's a good idea to cast a pretty wide net. Because if you only play it for one or two people and they give you some really bad advice, that can be almost worse than not getting any advice at all. So I would say, if you're going to do this, and it's a good thing to do, but if you're going to do this, go ahead and get a half dozen or a dozen people that you play it for, and so you can actually see what the trend is. And if your music, frankly, is going towards a certain demographic, if you're making indie rock music, then you're not going to want to play it for 5-year-olds, and you're not necessarily going to want to play it for your grandmother, or people your grandmother's age, unless they're really hip indie senior citizens, I guess. So anyway, you do have to finish. It's hard to know when it's finished. Sometimes you just know. Sometimes you do have that inner voice to saying, that's it, we're done. And, you know, sometimes you can trust that voice, but it's a good idea to play it for some people. It's also a really good idea to book the CD release party so that you have something to aim at.